to Sweet Soul Synergy TV. Today, our guest is Shane. Last time Shane was with us on the show, we discovered that the inspiration for her music came from her experience as a first responder on 9/11. Today, we have Shane with us here again.
And I just want to make a note here that this show is not about the surface. We really try to dig deeper to find the truth. So Shane, if you don't mind.
Would you tell us some of those powerful stories that we know you have?
Oh boy. There are a lot of things that happened at the mound when I arrived because I was the first of the first responders activating and dispatching other rescuers to the site. Some were horrifying that I'm still dealing with therapy, still to this day. And then others are so monumental, and these are the things that got me through my tour duty. And one in particular was when I got to the mound, I just prayed to God, like, I don't know what to do with this. There's no training for anything like this in this recovery operation. But I did see in the distance of all the horrors, in order for me to fulfill that assignment, there was this magnificent light that went in all the haze and the cloud and darkness and dust and debris falling from the sky. There was this luminescent light as I got to one of the towers where all the disaster was. And I looked and I saw I made out this luminescent, it was like a figure. There was a foot with a leather type strap on the foot.
Sandal?
A sandal. And it was on Tower 1, and on Tower 2 there was this other, it was kind of horrifying too, because I kept doing this, like am going in shock because I'm trained for that, like I was in this state of like amazement, like between horror and hell and heaven. I don't know how else to describe it. There was 2 planes there, if you can imagine, and being a visionary, that just kicked in with me because I'm pretty sensitive. So I went to look up higher and I saw these like very muscular legs that were like so real, like you could almost touch them. And as I went up, there was this shield, and it was a body and a figure, and it went all the way up, straight up to the heaven. And I saw that it was an angel. But it was so horrifying to me because this angel, I've seen angels before and I've seen miracles and things like that. But this angel was the most serious looking, like he was going to do battle and destroy whoever did this to God's world. You understand? And I got really scared. And I knew it was angel. I knew it was Michael the Archangel, and I remember reading so many times in the Bible, like Michael the Archangel, he's the head of all the armies. And
right. He controls everything.
I never saw an angel that was angry. That's why he was the head of the army. He was on an assignment. He was serious. And I was getting this, like a message, like just say the word. And he was like under the command. He was the head of the command. I was like, even the devil himself, if there was such a thing, would just shudder and just die of fright just by this one sight that he had it. And so I immediately, I'm not scared of angels, but I did go, dear God, tell me who I am. I was really scared.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
And it overtook my fright of the horror in order to do the assignment. And then I felt this feeling of peacefulness, like it's okay, he's there. And then I saw there were like these bubbles almost, like if you see like these little glimmering lights that were going up through him. And I was trying to comprehend what this was, but God allowed me to understand what that was. It was like a cleansing on that site, that no matter who was there or what their sins or faults or fears, or it was like a cleansing. They were going through him straight up through the heavens.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so privileged to know this. Like like the heavens opened up and I'm understanding that. So all the stuff behind him and around him was secondary to what this magnificent sight was. And later on, when you see these photos of this light going up those 2 towers, many of us that saw that angel know what that really was. There really was a light. At the time, there was no electric, there was no gas, everything was turned off. There was
Right.
no,
Yeah.
there was no lights. It was just pitch black for many days, and you couldn't even see the sky. So the first responder that I activated was Connie Schneider. And when she got there, she was like this heavy-set, rugged, rescuer from Cape May. And she had this like long reddish blonde hair. And she was like, had this cigarette in her mouth. And she's like, okay, so where do you want me? And I'm like, okay. I've got a female, and okay, I don't mind working with her. And it took a while for the team to show up on the mound because they had to get clearance and all this, and they were waiting for it to be called safe. And when they finally were able to arrive, she was there, and I walked her. I said, well, here's the site, and this is what we're dealing with. So she gets closer, and she's like smoking her cigarette like this, like a boy, and she looks, and she's like going in. I thought she was going to the shot because
Right.
I had to watch that. That
Right.
was what I had to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the matter? Are you okay? And she just went like this. And I go, I'm thinking, is it a body part that she...
Yeah.
I go, what are you seeing? And she's like that. I go, are you seeing like a foot?
Oh gosh.
And
Oh my
I
God.
on
have
the-
chills.
I know.
I have chills.
I
And
know.
she's
I can
like-
see it as she's saying
Yeah,
it,
me
you
too.
know?
Yeah.
She's like that. I go, on the mound, and it was like a fiery, burning, exploding mound with the screeching steel in the
Right.
background with the flames and the fire. And she's like this, and I go, and there's the other foot, and then I grabbed her hand like this, and I said, it's okay. And the funny thing was, I go, it's an angel. And she's
And she
looked
looked up.
like that, yeah. And she immediately did this. I know, right?
I know.
She immediately
Tearing
got the
up.
cigarette, and she was like,
She put a
she
cigarette
didn't
out.
want to, she didn't want to put it
She had a
out.
smoker in front of the angel.
So she was like this, and I go, it's funny now, but it wasn't.
I know,
I know, it's
but we
not
have to
funny,
find some
but-
humor in some of this.
I
a little
go,
bit.
this
Meanwhile,
is
I'm
what really
crying.
happened
I know.
that you don't know. I go, Connie, all, can I say it? All of effing New York is on fire right now.
Right.
Put the cigarette out. Are you okay? I became the guy, the soldier.
Right.
And she just was like, and I go, it's okay. It's Michael the Archangel. I've been talking to God. I've been here by myself. It's okay. What I think is, it's like such a sacred site that we are so privileged to be able just to even witness this. I don't know what all this is about. I go, but it's like in the Bible, the army of angels, and I know it's scary because his face was like,
Stern.
He was mad. Yeah.
he had this chiseled features in his face, and his eyes were like electric. They were like blue. I'll never forget. And his eyes were like this. It was the scariest thing I'll never
Wow.
forget. And it was surreal and almost like alien, but I'm not going to go there because
That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show, but we're
It
not
wasn't
going to
that.
exclude
Not
it. We're not
today.
going to exclude it.
To me, it was
Mhm,
strange. We'll
mhm.
put it that way. So I said, it's okay. I said, God's got this, and I don't know what's going to happen. Because I'm like, are we at the end?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
think
think
that-
I would be
yeah,
like,
I
it's
would
This
an
is what I'm
apocalypse.
going
Yeah.
through. I'm like, who's going to be the responder for me?
Right.
And I can't tell them how I died of shock,
Right.
But I knew I was going to be okay, but there was a reason for me to know this, and I don't know why. But it enabled me to be strong, and then I was here, and then Connie says, she's like, do you hear the choirs? And I said, yeah. Do you hear the choirs? I said, well, I'm like, that's Michael the Archangel. I said, but she goes, it's coming from that church. I said, yeah, Connie, but it can't be.
Right.
Because
Church
there's
is
nobody in
empty.
the church,
Yeah.
and I do hear it, and it was one of my songs that I had written, and I was hearing it, and I'm like, that, I didn't go into that because she's not a songwriter, but that was God's way of saying, remember,
here.
I'm the one that wrote the songs, that
Yeah.
give you the songs and you know it, so I'm here, and that was comforting to me to hear my songs that God gave me around me, and it was Children of the Air, and it was like, ooh, I knew it wasn't the words, it was
No.
the, I knew the
Right,
tune.
right.
Just the music.
And I was singing along with it. I said, yeah, the angels with the choirs. And so she was like, I never forget. She turned like white. She had freckles and this reddish hair. And I remember she was full of freckles, but her face was so white. And I said, come on, let's go get a coffee. We'll go back. She's like, no, it's okay. What do you need me to do?
Aw.
That's
And anyway, that had occurred. And she later, she was dying of cancer from being on that site, and I had to deal with that.
I'm sure many of the people that you worked with.
And these are
became
the
ill.
stories you don't get to know, because
Right.
those rescuers that we had to go to the funerals of the ones that were beside us, it was heartbreaking, because like, why am I still alive?
Right.
And why? But for me, I had to activate and dispatch her, so I had to go through a lot of therapy with survivor's guilt till this day. But when I went to her, there's a woman that's still alive that went with me. She lived in New Jersey. She's an older woman, Mary Fisher. She's in Florida. And I got a call late at night. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And Connie's calling from a hospital. She's like, it's me. She's like, I go, Connie? She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm like, where are you? She said, where do you think I am? She said, I'm dying.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God, she's in shock. And she reached out to me. And I go, what do you mean you're dying? She said, you know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. You know what they did to us. And I was so tired of hearing this from all the people dying around us. And even when we did the rescue work, they were saying, you know, our chances of living through this. I'm like, we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's too late now. You're
Right.
there. But I knew God was there, and I knew the angels, and it just was about faith. And I didn't know what to do. It was too late. What am I going to go home? Like,
Right,
do
right.
what?
Yeah,
I'm
Sit
done.
and
You're
wonder
like,
when am I going to die
you
because I'm already exposed.
Right, yeah. So at that point, you're.
She was in bed. I went to the hospital. I had my badge, and I didn't even question it. I said, Mary, I said, I have to go to the hospital. I don't know if she's losing her mind, if she's really there. I called the hospital. They did have a Connie Schneider there, but she's terminal, and she only had like days to live, and she didn't tell anybody. So I go and I have my badge. I'm like, I need.
You okay?
Yeah. So I went to see her, and she said, do you know why you're here? And I said, no. And I said, do you want me to pray? And she said, I said, I know we had those talks where you told me you never went to church and you're not an atheist, but you don't believe in anything, but you just help others, because she was worked in an ambulance with the ambulance.
She was
and
an EMT.
yeah, she was a good person, and she said, but you need to tell everybody this story. I said, and she said, you know what I'm talking about. She was rugged. You know what I'm talking about. And she was going like this because she had liver cancer. And she was pushing the pump. And it was so heartbreaking because I'd be strong for that.
Mhm.
Still.
Yeah.
Still not getting therapy for myself yet because I thought, I'm okay. I'm
I can
alive. and I'm
handle
cool.
it.
Yeah. I can identify with that.
I think we
because
all can.
I've gone through that, so,
So
I
she,
know that.
all she kept saying was, we heard what we heard, we saw what we saw, and you've got to get this message out to everybody. And I said, yeah, I will. I didn't want to talk about 9/11 for so
No.
long.
Right.
She's like, no, promise me. And I promised her, but I wasn't ready to even talk about anything because they had all these movies about 9/11 and it was all bullshit and that's not what really happened, and so much hype and so many people saying, oh, I was there. No, you weren't. I would have seen you. I would have activated and dispatched you. My director, Roland Candle, it had to be cleared through, so there were so many clearances. And if you came at the tail end, okay, thank you very much. But we were the cleanup crew. There was no rescue. It was recovery. Nobody told us that. And what we saw and what we heard and what we know, with those buildings being imploded like that and then throwing us in the middle of that. You go to an imploded building and you see if you're allowed to go within, how many,
Yards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No way.
and without equipment, just walk in.
Yeah.
And then-
and what did you have? A helmet, not even a mask, right?
Finally, they gave us a white helmet, but we didn't have masks or anything. I automatically was doing this, you know, my jacket and my
Right.
uniform, and just instinctively. I wasn't like a medical tech going, you know, this and this and this, and
Right, right, right.
and all this stuff's flying around. But I do remember Connie saying, you know, make sure you get this story out, it wasn't never the right time, and now it's the time
Absolutely.
to bring it up.
And I want to say thank you for sharing that
Yes,
with us
please.
too, because I know that it's hard to relive that
Mhm.
while you speak it, because I can tell that you're there.
Yeah,
And,
I'm there with her right now.
But I'm sure she's thrilled that it's finally
Absolutely.
being revealed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
She might be sitting right next to me.
that's an amazing. It's an amazing thing that
Yeah.
happened to both of you.
Yeah.
It's,
I see her actually say, finally,
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah, that's
Right.
great. I'm
And
so happy that you
So
shared
she
that.
was a witness, and my friend that's still alive in Florida, she kept saying, "Did you tell the story? You need to tell that story," because I know she's older and she doesn't want to die knowing that she was there
right.
when I made that promise about the angel.
Yeah.
I have a question. While you were there on the mound, and I know you know how intuitive you are, and you are a visionary.
Mhm.
How did you not take on all the energy, not just from the other people that you were working with, the people that you had to actually, you know, help the other first responders, and also the people that perished?
Mhm.
It must have been so difficult to actually put some type of invisible shield around
Oh,
yourself, bounce some white light around, whatever it is. But how could you not take on that sorrow, that sadness, that heavy cloud? You know, that's
I had to be aware of the men around me, and as they were screaming and carrying on. Here's another part of the story you didn't see. They were actually screaming, "That's my brother!"
oh my God,
Um,
I couldn't.
I know.
And all the locators that were going off, and the firefighters,
So what were the locators doing? Were they actually going
they were
through
chirping.
the debris?
Chirp, chirp,
oh,
chirp, chirp,
oh, they were
under-
actually machines.
They were these round like locators that are on the firefighters' equipment.
Oh.
When you're trapped, or you're like, say a floorboard falls and you're trapped or something, and it automatically goes
I didn't know about
off,
Yeah.
so they can locate the firefighter. If it's too
Okay.
much smoke,
that. Like a GPS.
Okay.
It's like a
Yes.
GPS.
Okay.
Right.
so
like a
there's
tracker.
a chirping. Chirp, okay, so here's what happened. In addition to all the horror and the horrific sights, and the screeching metal and the bombs going, you don't know if you're being bombed above
Right.
or if it's the
From underneath.
explosion
Right.
of gas.
Right.
Pockets underground. You didn't have a sense of what's up and what's down, and I had to constantly be aware. But before I would go in, I just pray to God, and God was with me. And every time I would be like locked in a stare myself, like, oh my God, somebody. It was just the way it happened, with so much faith, I think, with God. Somebody be carrying on, and it got me. It was like a re-shock to get me out of that shock.
Right. Right.
Because nobody was there to guide me except the
I
master.
know.
And then
It's like
the
who
music
takes
I'm
care of the
hearing.
caregiver?
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know, that's always a question.
Mhm.
Who takes care of
Yeah.
the caregiver?
So as they're screaming and carrying on, I'm like, okay, it's okay. We're going to find him. I would go along with it. We're going to find him. We're here. It's okay. I knew there's no way
Right.
anybody could survive. But how many floors being completely, imploded
Right.
down to the surface. Even if somebody's there, there's no way. All
They're
that
not
weight.
alive.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it was a blessing. I saw it as a blessing.
Right.
Yeah.
My brain had to look at it that way
Mhm.
to keep doing the job. My brain kept like, they're gone, you can't go there, find the ones that need help.
Right.
And they were the ones that are alive. They didn't want to leave, they wanted to be there, we had to do it for them.
Right.
To let them deal with all that happened to their brothers. They were related to each other. Fire and rescue and police in New York, it's like that.
Yes.
And I was
Wow.
aware of that. So when you heard these locators, like the staircase is there where the firefighters are, but in the distance of all this emptiness, when you got there, it wasn't there. There was nothing, a building for it to echo off to find where the sound was. No one, studio and sound. I was aware of that because at first I'm like, the staircase is there, and I'm getting the message from the director at the command center. Do you have a rough idea? Do you have a rough idea where the staircase is? Follow the locators. I'm like, Roland, I worked in a studio. I know about sound. When we get there, every time we get to that spot where we think we hear it,
It's not.
when others are all around, now it's not going off of us
Right.
because there's no building.
Yeah.
So what happened was we just all stood there, and it sounded like it was so surreal. It was like they were all calling each other underground.
Oh, that is just.
It was like, and I was like,
Yeah.
dear God. I kept saying, dear God, and then God took that away. And I had to take a breath and be strong, like, you know. So then finally, after days of that, I walked through with them. I mean, we had to walk because we were trying to find who was alive as we're going through all the body parts.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, I didn't look at his body parts. I knew there was an angel that had their spirit. That's where they were. They were alive. That was just like, I had to look at it as like, you know when you clip your fingernails, you don't cry when you know it's your body,
Right.
but you don't need it anymore. That's where I went, because I had to rationalize on my own. That's a God thing. There's no training for that. So I'm like, they didn't need that. It's fine. Find these firefighters. Maybe there is like an air pocket. Maybe there's...
Yeah, a crevice or something.
And everybody's looking for the blueprints for the building. This is what you don't know. There were no blueprints. There were no blueprints in City Hall where they should have been. There were no blueprints. They vanished. They weren't around. We couldn't
Interesting.
find out where the building structures were. They had to call in outside engineers.
And architects, I would imagine, yeah.
They had to get clearances, and what happened with that was when they came in, they're not prepared for rescue work,
Oh.
and they couldn't handle it. They come to the site and they'd be like, well, where was the building? They couldn't get past. So there were buckets everywhere, and they're throwing up in them, and we had to take care of them. And I just said, after a few days, Roland, the director, said, I'm coming out there, because he couldn't leave his command post. He's getting calls from the Pentagon, calls from the airport, calls from rescuers who wanted to come from around the world, calls from the FBI, all this stuff. And he had to leave the command post with someone that he could trust to secure that post.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out, and the hardest thing was, he's like, okay, so why can't you find I hear the locator. I said, yeah, this is going on it seemed like months. It was just constant. And I said, go over there. And he went, and he got red in the face. And he was with the firefighters, and they had the shovels, the little pick shovels, and they were like going through stuff, and then the guys didn't even want to go through stuff because it was moving.
Right, and what are you going to find? You
So
don't
he
even
came
want to
back and
know
he
that
said,
we're-
so what do you think? And he said, all right, call it. I didn't expect that. I said, I think we should move on, and we should identify for the people that are missing these people. I think we should move on and identify and start the recovery. There's no rescue. He said, all right, call it. And I did. And then I realized the weight of that afterwards. I'm like, but I felt inside that I was okay with that.
And it
but
was
I
the
never
right
expected-
thing to do.
Yeah, because then the angel was still there. I looked. The choirs kind of stopped. Everything stopped. It was quiet. And then it seemed like the more rescuers started coming in, and they started laying down the blue tarps of like, I got this site, and our engine's going to be here, and this is where our engine is, and they just started filling up around. And then we started going in, and they're like, what do you need us to do? And then there was the MASH unit behind us that was being created that I didn't see because I was this way, the 1 mile radius. And behind us was a MASH unit with these red tarps. And that's where the DNA lab was, and that's where they had people there, the medics, and it was like, you know, surgeons, and if you got hurt, and if you, you know, you wanted coffee or water
Or shock. You went into shock.
yeah, and they had all type of rescue equipment, and we had went in with the buckets to get the body parts.
It's tough. Yes.
So then I saw bubbles where the angel was, and they were like little bubbles, like when you're a little kid, and I used to love bubbles.
Right.
And I saw the bubbles, and I looked, and the guys were like, I don't know how you're doing this. Don't have her here. And I looked at them, and then their chief was like, oh, no, we're not doing that today. We're not, no. And I have the FBI jacket with the big letters SISM,
Right.
and they said, she is the one that you have to go through. She's with command. And so, oh, okay. So, and I'm looking ahead. They're doing their thing, so I'm not getting involved in that. We all had to decide what we were doing on that. I had to figure out how I was going to relay the accurate information while still listening to, I'm sending this guy down. I need you to do this. What's happening here? Can you find that? Do you see the MASH unit? We have supplies coming out for you. We heard your boots, your rubber soles are melting. We have Timberland boots coming in with a shipload. I need you to, it was St. Aloysius Church, you know, I said, I have no idea where any of this is. I'll get back to you. We're going through the rubble. And then I was seeing the bubbles that stayed and kept me focused.
They talked about before.
And there were little blinking lights in the bubbles as I was staring, and I'm going like this. Am I hallucinating? Is it the asbestos? Is it the chemicals? Is it the toxins that they keep talking about? Do you know how many toxins? I don't want to hear this.
Right.
But the
in it.
firefighters are
Yeah.
aware when they got, and they were like, please, no talk of that. We're here now. So I'm thinking it's the gases or something coming up from the ground, but it wasn't. They were going through. Why would they just specifically go through the one tower, through the one leg, and the next one going straight?
I believe
That
that
is
was
inc-
the energy and souls of the departed. That's my
God
thought
gave
on
me
it.
another secret in the life that I was so fortunate to see. They're the souls.
Yeah.
Right.
Some of them were hovered in a cluster that were here. And I understood this, and I'm like, how am I knowing this? But I had to in order to do that job. And some were like, they'd be like, psh, psh, and I'm like,
I hope I'm like that.
I go right up.
and some were like in groups, like, and I was like hearing them, like, are we dead? Do we die? Are we? That's what I was picking up.
Yeah.
So I turned away from the firefighters because that's the first time I cried. I don't want them to see me crying. And I
Right.
said, I want you all to know I'm here. This is why I go through therapy with this, but I'm okay now. But talking about it,
Right.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
of course.
yeah,
It brings it all
of
back.
course.
you know,
Yeah.
I said, I just want you to know that I'm here and that everybody loves you and it's okay to go. The whole world loves you. The whole world, it's not for you to understand, but our Father is here. Just go, you'll be okay. But everybody loves you and I'm not leaving you. I'm staying with you forever. I'm here. I don't know why I said that because I think I took some of that with me and they're still around me and I had to go to healers who said, where were you? And they're
Yeah.
picking it up and I knew that wasn't a coincidence and I had to, tell them. But I just, eventually they were just going up and then that stopped after a while.
But
It
how
was like
fortunate
months.
were you to actually see that?
That's
Right.
what I said.
That
And be
is
there
a miracle.
seeing heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean, it
seeing
really is.
heaven.
Do
And
we need to take a break?
I'm
Are
okay.
you okay?
I'm okay. That's it. They went to heaven, and I was able to put in words now.
All right. I think we should take a break here, and we'll be
And we'll
back
regroup.
with more. So thank you for tuning in to Sweet Soul Synergy TV. We'll be back after a short break.